Hello everyone, my name is Bino. In this Math Olympiad question, we have to solve for x, and if we were to square both sides of our equation, this is the result that we will get. And arranging this in standard form, we get the following equation, and it will be very challenging for us to factorize this equation to the power 4. Using the long division method will not be an option since the roots of this equation are fractions. Instead, we are going to introduce a parameter. Before we can introduce the parameter, let's define our conditions. Since we have the square root of 8 minus x, the 8 minus x must be greater or equal to 0. The 8 must be greater or equals to x, or the x must be less than or equals to 8. Defining conditions for the right side of the equation, the 8 minus x squared must be greater or equals to 0. The 8 must be greater than or equals to x squared. The x squared must be less or equals to the 8. We introduce the square root both sides of the equation. The x should be less or equals to plus or minus the square root of 8, or rather x should be an element of negative the square root of 8 to positive the square root of 8. The conditions imposed by the right hand side of this equation are much more strict than the conditions of the left hand side of the equation. So we are not going to go with the conditions of the left hand side of the equation. Instead, we'll go with the conditions of the right hand side of this equation. We introduce a parameter y, which will be equal to 8, and our new equation in the form of y will have y minus x, which will be equal to y minus x squared. We square both sides of this equation, and the square root will cancel out such that we have y minus x is equals to the y raised to the power 2, which will be y squared. The 2 multiplied by the y multiplied by the negative x squared will be equals to negative 2y multiplied by x squared. And the negative x squared raised to the power 2 will be equals to positive x to the power 4. Taking the terms on the left hand side to the right hand side, we have y squared minus 2y multiplied by the x squared. When the positive y jumps the equal sign, it will change sign to negative y, and we still have the positive x to the power 4. And the negative x, when it jumps the equal sign, it will be positive x. The highest exponent of the x is 4, but the highest exponent of the y is equal to 2. We have a quadratic equation in y. So we have 0, which is equal to y squared. From here, we can take the y as our common factor. In fact, we take the negative y as our common factor, and our parentheses will open up to 2x squared plus 1. We have a quadratic equation in y, so we can take this y and move it this side so that we can see that the negative into 2x squared plus 1 is a coefficient of the y. And we have the x raised to the power 4 plus x. In terms of y, the x to the power 4 plus x will be a constant. Since we have a quadratic equation in y, let's introduce the quadratic formula where our y will be equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. We start off by determining the discriminant of this quadratic equation. So the discriminant, the term inside the square root, the b squared minus 4ac will be equals to our b of this quadratic equation in y will be negative into the 2x squared plus 1, and this whole is raised to the power 2 minus 4a. Our a, the coefficient of the y squared, is equals to 1. Our c with respect to y will be equals to x to the power 4 plus x. Our discriminant will be equals to the negative squared will be positive, and the 2x squared raised to the power 2 will be equals to 4x to the power 4 plus the 2 multiplied by the 2x squared multiplied by 1, which will be equals to 4x squared, and the 1 raised to the power 2 will be equals to positive 1. We distribute the negative 4 inside the parentheses, and we'll have negative 4x to the power 4 minus 4x. So our discriminant will be equals to the 4x to the power 4 minus that 4x to the power 4 will be equals to 0, and we'll be left with the 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. And when we factorize, the factors of the 4x squared will be equals to 2x and 2x, and the factors of the positive 1 will be equals to 1 and 1. And because of this negative and that positive, we'll have negative here and negative there. So our discriminant will be equals to 2x minus 1 multiplied by 2x minus 1, which is 2x minus 1 squared. So we have successfully determined our discriminant. Let's make it plain that our discriminant is equals to 2x minus 1 squared. We can go right ahead and substitute the rest of the terms inside this quadratic formula. So our y will be equals to negative b, and our b is equals to negative into 2x squared plus 1 plus or minus the square root of the b squared minus 4ac, which we determined as 2x minus 1 squared, and we are dividing this by 2 multiplied by a, and our a is equals to 1. Our y will be equals to the negative multiplied by the negative will be positive, so we'll be left with 2x squared plus 1 plus or minus the square and the square root will cancel out, and we'll be left with the 2x minus 1 divided through by 2. Our y from the positive side will be equals to 2x squared plus 1 plus the 2x minus 1 divided by 2, or our y will be equals to 2x squared plus 1, and this is from the negative side, and this is divided by 2. The 1 minus 1 will be 0. We have y is equals to 2x squared plus 2x divided by 2, or y is equals to the 2x squared plus 1. Distributing the negative sign inside the parentheses, we have negative 2x plus 1 divided by 2. So our y will be equals to the 2x squared, the positive 1 plus 1 will be equals to 2 So we have the negative 2x plus the 2 divided by 2. Our y will be equals to, dividing every term by 2, we get the x squared plus x, or our y is equals to x squared minus x plus 1. We remember that we introduced a parameter y which was equals to 8. In the place of the y, we substitute back the 8, and this will be equals to x squared plus x. Our 8 will be equals to x squared minus x plus 1. So our 0 will be equals to x squared plus x minus 8, or 0 will be equals to x squared minus x minus 7. We use the quadratic formula again, so we have x is equals to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. This side, the x will be equals to negative b, which is equals to 1 plus or minus the square root of the b squared, which is equals to 1 minus 4a. Our a is equals to 1, and this is multiplied by the c, the negative 8, and dividing by 2a, and our a is equals to 1. X will be equals to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of the negative 4 multiplied by the negative 8 will be equals to 32. 32 plus 1 will be equals to 33. And this is divided by 2. On this side, we have x is equals to negative into, so our b in this equation is equals to negative 1 plus or minus negative 1 squared minus 4a. Our a is equals to 1, and our c is equals to negative 7. We are dividing through by 2 multiplied by a, and our a is equals to 1. So our x will be equals to 1 plus or minus negative 1 squared will be equals to positive 1 plus the negative 4 multiplied by the negative 7 will be equals to positive 28, and 28 plus 1 is equals to 29, and this is divided by 2. Finally, x will be equals to negative 1 plus the square root of 33 divided by 2, or x is equals to negative 1 minus the square root of 33 divided by 2, or x is equals to 1 plus the square root of 29 divided by 2, or x is equals to 1 minus the square root of 29 divided by 2. We refer to the condition that was imposed. So we had x is an element of negative the square root of 8 to positive the square root of 8. So we had the condition x is an element of negative the square root of 8 to positive the square root of 8. By virtue of that condition, our x1 will be equals to negative 1 plus the square root of 33 divided by 2, and x2 will be equal 1 minus the square root of 29 divided by 2. So that root and this root will be inadmissible, and the correct roots will be these ones. Thank you guys for watching up until this point. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe, like and share the channel if you find this content useful.